We be going live. We be live. We was going live, and now we are live. This is me again. Currently, still in Key West, working at the KOA. Let's see. Oh, so you're offended. This was eloquently put by someone else. I was like, it's just really well written, and I've just been thinking about it for a couple days, and I thought, just want to give some thoughts on it. My personal journey with offense, I would get offended throughout my life, periodically. Offended, sometimes, well, it didn't matter. Sometimes it was what people said, sometimes it was what people did, sometimes it was the clothes they wore, sometimes it was, lyrics to songs. Let's see, what else did I get pissed off about? I get offended, and especially religiously, like offended, like God would never allow. Why do I need an accent for that? Oh, God would. Oh, this is so offensive to the Lord, right? So I always kind of had that culture around me, where sometimes I was told what to be offended about, a preacher or evangelist or somebody would be like, you should be offended by that. I'd be like, oh, yeah, you're right. I should be. I laugh now because it's so silly. But, let's see, 10 years ago? More than 10 years ago. A passing statement by at a conference I was at. The guy's name was Steve Backlund. Has some really good material. You should check him out. But he said, there was no need to be offended. That Jesus was never offended. And I remember thinking, what are you talking about? And then, hang on. Hey, Brett, sorry, I'm on the phone, man. All right. Neighbor stopped by with his dog. But I just remember thinking, of course he was offended. And then I immediately went to Jesus in the temple. And I realized that whole story, which is only like 2 verses long, there's literally nothing in the translation that require him to be offended or angry or violent. And yet I've heard all of that associated with that particular event in his life. The terms that are used are very neutral, and the fact that in essence, what he did was not unusual for any rabbi to do. So it's not anyways. Episode, I think it's 27. It's a bonus episode of season 1 of the Epic Narrative Podcast. I lay it all out for you there. I'm a little triggered at the time, so I might be a little intense, but it's mostly because people use that passage as an excuse to be angry, offended, violent, and all that. My dog. That was my dog. That's Bob's dog. It is fun living in a neighborhood. Sorry. Oh, so I was. You can check it out there. But basically, he wasn't. And there's nothing else in his life that indicates that he ever was. If he wasn't there, then he wasn't anywhere else that we know of. And that doesn't mean he doesn't point things out or have a discussion, but that's the difference, right? When you're offended, it's like, now what? There's some sense inwardly where you become self-righteous, which is never healthy. You become self-focused because you're offended now. Now you have to let people know, because otherwise Otherwise, what's the use? I'm offended, but I didn't tell anybody. So now what, right? You have to stop it. He's such a dog. Anyways, this has turned into a much longer thing than I expected. Mostly because I keep getting distracted. Right? You got to in essence cause strife if you're offended. Strife is a political term meaning to divide people. You need to find people to be on your side so that you can continue holding on to the offense. And then there's lots of times people will gladly come to your side and carry the offense for you even though they weren't offended. They'll get offended on your behalf and they'll carry the torch and they'll get more people on your side. Oh yeah, it's quite ridiculous. Because the offense doesn't allow for conversation. It doesn't allow for understanding. It doesn't allow for interaction or relationship to be built. Even it doesn't even allow for like mutual agreement to maybe put up some boundaries between each other. Like if you're offended, all of that is turned away and turned into something that ultimately eats you up and destroys relationship. It destroys your self-confidence. It destroys your self-being, your inner peace. It just complicates all the issues that you might be having. And yet some people don't know any other way to interact with something they don't like except to be offended. So I would encourage you to do this. When you feel offended, don't stay there. Get curious. If you sense offense, get curious. Say, all right, what am I so offended about? And what am I going to do about it? Like, what's the point? How can I turn this into an opportunity to get to know someone, to understand somebody, to understand myself? I tell you, that was so eye-opening to me. When so anyways, 10 years ago, I gave up being offended. I just said, all right, I'm just not going to be offended. I don't care what happens. I'm not going to be offended. And then I had to figure out what to do when that feeling arose. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to be curious. I'm going to start asking questions. And 90% of the time, it was an issue I had. It was something that was going on internally with me that I was like, blah, blah, blah. I was feeling misunderstood. I was feeling unknown, unheard. When I realized Jesus never got offended, it was like, well, then what am I worried about? Am I worried that Hollywood doesn't adhere to kingdom principles? Am I offended that the art community doesn't adhere to kingdom principles? Am I offended that politicians don't adhere to kingdom principles? No. Why? What's my expectation? And if I do get offended, what am I going to do? Yell at them? Write a letter? Make a rude comment on Facebook? It's all, it actually gets pretty ridiculous pretty fast. So I wouldn't recommend giving up being offended if you can't laugh at yourself, because you're going to find that you are pretty ridiculous if you get offended. And you waste so much energy. So much energy. All right, enough for me. I hope I gave you something to think about, and have yourself a fabulous day.